Hello, everyone. This is Gopal Ponangi. Welcome to iAsia News. In this program, we have Genevieve Collins. She is the congressional candidate for District 32, which is mostly Dallas and the nearby areas. And in this interview, we'll be talking about, her passion, her district, the geographical area, and her stance, and then what she plans to do after she represents the community at DC. So please join me in welcoming Genevieve. Hello,
Good,
Genevieve.
good evening, Gopal. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be on your program tonight.
Absolutely. Genevieve, and then for listeners, as you may be aware, the early voting is on. The actual voting is on 3rd of November. So if you have not voted, or if any of your friends have not voted yet, please make sure that they vote. The early voting is on until this Friday. The exact times and locations you can Google and then find out, but make sure that you vote. And then while it is very important for us to have the proper representation at the national level, about who our president is, but what is most important is about the people who are representing us, people with whom we can connect on a regular basis, with whom we can talk about our issues and then get them resolved. So one such person is with us today, Genevieve. She is running as a congressional candidate for District 32. So Genevieve, can you tell a little bit about the geographical areas that you'll be covering, your District 32?
Sure. So, District 32 is a very large area. It covers most of Dallas County, basically from uptown through the Park Cities, Preston Hollow, North Dallas, far North Dallas, Richardson, Garland, Saxe, Wiley, and Rowlett. So it's over 800,000 people, and it's the majority of Dallas County, a tiny bit of Collin County as it pushes eastward out to Lake Ray Hubbard.
Perfect. Thank you. And then you will be the youngest Texan, right, to occupy this office once you get elected. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I am so filled with gratitude. This journey has been so positive and so joyful running for Congress, despite all of the negativity and divisiveness that we feel in the news, what seems like on a daily basis. My journey has been positive and filled with many blessings and joy. I will be the first woman ever elected to represent my community, which just makes me feel so honored that, young women can look up to me, that older women can see me as the woman they wanted to be in a different time, and that I can knit the fabric of our community back together. That's my overall purpose and my reason for doing this.
Perfect. So when you say about the reason for doing this, right, I want to go a little bit deeper. So you are from a family of trailblazers, and your grandmother is the first woman to be a council member at the Dallas City. Isn't that right?
Yes, she was the first woman ever elected to the Dallas City Council, and that was in 1957. She was 34 with three children, and this summer I turned 34 and I will be the first woman elected to represent my district. So, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, it's cool, right?
Absolutely. So tell me about it. How do you feel, being so young? Normally, it's that, people of older age will get into politics and all, but, what drew you to run for this role, that too directly as a congresswoman?
Well, so Gopal, my family, when I first started working, this was in 2008. I graduated from the University of Tennessee in 2008 when there were no jobs. So reluctantly, I moved home, which I considered to be a huge failure. I moved home, I moved back in with my father, and I started working at our family company. As a young college graduate, I was ready to go out like guns blazing, take on the world, as most 22-year-olds are. And the world was like, yeah, we're not ready for you yet. Right? And so I started working at my family company. I was our 36th employee. I started in the mailroom, so started at the bottom. And over the last 13 years, I've helped build my family business, which is in the education business, My company is called iStation. We teach kids how to read and do math to close the achievement gap in public schools. And I worked in the sales department for over 10 years. And then after getting my MBA at SMU here in Dallas, I transitioned into being head of corporate strategy. And as my role of head of national sales and as head of corporate strategy, I started advocating and writing education policy. And every time I would go talk to state legislators or even federal legislators, 9 out of 10 times, most of these people don't come from a business background. And when you're dealing with enormous budgets and sustainability and scalability on policy and how to implement it in a trickle down fashion from the federal level all the way down, most of these legislators don't have the fundamentals and the business acumen to do it right, in my opinion. And I just felt like, we need less government in business, but we need more business in government. And while I may only be 34, I've helped build my family business from 36 employees to now over 300 employees. When I started, we served less than 100,000 students. Now we serve 5 million students nationwide. That makes up roughly 12% of the US population. And so I feel like we need fresh ideas. We need energy. We need someone with a dynamic point of view that also has experience. And why not a 34-year-old businesswoman who's from the community and wants to serve to make sure every child is prepared for a thriving future, but also every adult is included in that future.
Perfect. That's a perfect platform for somebody to, take that role. And do you have any specific, agenda items, or what are your priorities? From the priority standpoint, what will GC be doing once she goes to DC? By the way, listeners, GC is Genevieve Collins. So, what will GC do when she goes to DC?
Well, my platform that I've been running on for the last 15 months now, it's been about the economy, education, and national security. Specifically cybersecurity as it pertains to national security. I think that our community should demand that North Texas is represented by someone with real business experience, someone that has created jobs, balanced a budget, and forecasted growth. That's what we need coming out of an economic reset or an economic crisis. But also from an education standpoint, we have now seen millions of kids be left behind from school because they don't have access to consistent broadband or Wi-Fi or a device. Just in Dallas ISD, there are 100,000 students that have not been found since March. 100,000 students that have not been found because they aren't logging in to the distance learning or online learning platforms. This is an area I think that the federal government should really be able to fund from an infrastructure standpoint, be able to fund having consistent broadband and Wi-Fi across all of our communities, whether you're in rural, suburban, or urban America. This is how we ensure that every child is able to compete on a 21st century basis, and that every adult can work from home if they need to suddenly due to, God forbid, a global pandemic. So Gopal, I would say overall, that's one of my first priorities is to actually, and I've actually advocated this in the White House 4 years ago for an infrastructure bill to include connectivity for all kids. And so I actually have the legislation written. I just need a chance to be in DC to be able to put it on the floor. And that's what I really want to do because, our world has changed overnight and every child deserves to be prepared for a thriving future.
Perfect. Listeners who are just tuned in, I have an honor, interviewing Genevieve Collins, GC, and she is running for Congressional District 32. The elections, as you may be aware, are underway. The early voting, the last day is this coming Friday, and the actual election day is 3rd November. It's very important that we choose who will represent us in DC. So this is an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about Genevieve. So Genevieve, you have an uphill task, or a task of running against an incumbent. So how do you think you are different from the person who is currently in that role?
Well, Gopal, it's going to take there's 30 million reasons I'm different, but for the sake of your viewers, I'll tell you a few. First off, I'm the only business person in the race. My opponent has never been in business, and I don't think represents our community authentically and honestly. He talks about himself being bipartisan, yet he votes with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. His voting record, he votes with his Democrat Party 98% of the time. 2 years ago, voters in North Texas sent my opponent up to DC to do a job. That job is to legislate on our behalf. And yet he has passed 0 bills. He has nothing to his name to prove that he's done anything on our behalf. 0 bills. And just in context sake, I have a friend, he's a congressman in Houston. His name's Dan Crenshaw. He's in the same freshman class as my opponent, and he's serving in the minority as a Republican. He's passed 5 bills. My opponent has passed 0. That's called being an ineffective Washington party line politician. And I think our community deserves much better and deserves someone that actually has the experience to get us back on track and keep our economy churning at 10,000 miles per minute.
Perfect. Yeah, that's very nice to know. And then, as a board of trustee myself, and to a larger part of the community, public education is very, very important. Yeah. And then, as a person, as an executive at iStation with extensive experience dealing with school districts, understanding their issues and all. So, how do you think that you are poised to help the community from the public education standpoint?
Well, having served my entire career working with public schools, this is my heart, making sure that every child in public school is, prepared for, like I said, a great future ahead of them. The biggest things that I think we need to have happen is take the federal government away as much as possible. Now, not that, I don't mean that in total, but we need to make decisions, and we need to send decisions and funding back down to state and local control. Local school boards know their students so much better than the federal government could ever aspire to. So why is the federal government making decisions for our local communities? That doesn't make sense, and it does not serve our students. I also think that with COVID and having this kind of opportunity to make meaningful education reform, I would really like to reform the accountability model for students. So often there's these one-shot, high-stakes end-of-year tests at the end of the year for students, basically from 3rd grade up until 12th grade. And it causes a lot of anxiety for both students and teachers. There's a lot riding on how students perform. But I think that moving away from this one-shot, high-stakes model into consistent progress monitoring throughout the year, showing a student's portfolio of work that they're able to not only master the content at this point in time, but also master the content that they're prepared for the next school year, is a much better way of measuring student progress, and also a much better way of enhancing critical thinking and creativity and giving students and teachers more of a partnership as they work through the school year.
Perfect. That's very impressive. And then I also heard about the surgery you had to go through. You are a real fighter. So tell me a little bit about the surgery and then how you are coping with it. And then I know that you had to miss a debate, I think the last debate or one of them. But tell me how you are able to cope with that particular situation and then get back as a fighter, and then standing out at the polls, or driving from one poll station to the other all day. So how are you able to do it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I will tell you, getting appendicitis a month before an election is suboptimal. This is not what I was anticipating. But unfortunately, I had appendicitis on October 2nd. I went to the hospital and I got my appendix removed on October 3rd. And due to really unfortunate circumstances, I had pretty severe complications from getting my appendix removed that put me back in the hospital the following weekend. Fortunately, I had the infection removed, but I also contracted sepsis, where my body went into septic shock. I know that there are a ton of Indian doctors, and I am thankful for you guys because it was a very scary experience for myself. Basically, I almost died, but I have a lot to live for and a lot to fight for. And I had a 20-minute septic episode, but fortunately, I had a phenomenal team of doctors be able to control my situation and get me back on and be healthy. And quite honestly, it's just my personality. I am super competitive. I am a fighter. I'm not going to let something stop me. I may be slowed down, but I cannot be stopped. And that's just really my approach. This has been an opportunity. I have an incredible team around me who I've been able to really lean on to help execute getting people to the polls, getting people engaged with our campaign, making sure when you walk to the polls, you see my signs, you feel greeted by my team, that it's a positive experience for you as you go to vote. Really relying on my team. And I gave myself 2 weeks of bed rest. And then I said, you know what? I only have like 15 days. I am going back out. I cannot be stopped. I want to see people. I want to tell people how thankful I am and how honored I am to have their votes, and be able to talk to people who are undecided and share with them why having a businesswoman at the helm of their district really is going to be serving their best needs, making sure they have quality and affordable healthcare, making sure they have jobs, making sure their kids are able to get a great education, and more importantly, making sure that you are the architect of your life, not the federal government. And so I figured, whatever, I've got 15 days. We're now 9 days left. I will leave nothing on the field. And it's been a great honor and joy to be able to run this race, meet people in our community, and hopefully ultimately knit the fabric of our community together.
Awesome. You are a great fighter. I also heard about the rowing teams, the efforts that you have put as a team lead, in the University of Tennessee and other things. So I have no doubts that, you will come out flying successfully. And hopefully I'm looking forward to have you back in this interview as a person representing District 32 at DC. So I have great hopes, and hopes, makes me ask a question about the youth, especially lots of youth. You are a young person, and then you are definitely a role model for youth. So what can you do to encourage youth to participate in public service?
Well, thank you for those incredible compliments, first off. I spend a lot of time talking to young people. I'm 34. And what's interesting is I believe that the Democrat Party basically assumes that they own all of the votes of young people. And, I want to push back on that, because I think, and what I talk to young people is and I talked to about 50 high schoolers yet last night alone. They're all like 14, 15, and 16. And I say, you really, I hope and encourage you to understand your own values and research what you believe, because there's a lot of forces from all sides of the political spectrum that are trying to persuade you as a young person what you need to believe. So if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. And it's really important that, you are true to yourself, but you understand intrinsically why you believe things and have the confidence to really be able to express your point of view in a way that's both civil and graceful, but also in a way that allows to have, meaningful discourse. And so that's really one of the things that I talk to young people is really understand, why do you have these values? Talk to your family about it. Really do the research so that you won't fall for anything. And then I would just say secondarily, Gopal, social media, especially with young people, this is the world that we all live in now. And the machine learning and the algorithms that are built into these tools are really effective at doing their job, but it's only serving you content on what you want to see. It's highly irregular that you'll see content that you're going to disagree with, but it's important to follow someone that's on the opposite political spectrum, just so you are aware, so that you are seeing something other than just what you want to consume. Because if you're only getting something one way, you're unable to have a two-way conversation.
Perfect. And then Genevieve, I can go on and on. It's so nice to interact with you, to learn your viewpoint and all. But it's been a long day for you. It's been a long week, and then you have a long week ahead of you too. So I'm very cognizant of the time you have and the time you're spending with us, with our viewers. So thank you so much for being with us. Once again, if you can tell a little bit about the area that you're covering and then the timings for the next few days, and also share your maybe 30-second pitch or a 1-minute pitch or whatever it is to our community, and then and then close this interview.
Perfect. Well, Gopal, thank you. It's an honor to be on your program and to have you as a friend. I'm sincerely grateful for this time. To all of your viewers, I would be honored to have your vote. I think this election year is important, unlike any other, and it's really an opportunity for us to really talk about what it means for us to choose what's best for our lives, for us as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as heads of our family, that we are in the driver's seat of making our own choices and not the government. And that's really what I'm trying to fight for. North Texas is an economic engine of our state and of our nation, and I believe should be led by someone with real meaningful business experience. And so I would love to be that person to represent your community, because your community is so entrepreneurial, so familial, so gracious and full of gratitude. That's exactly what I believe and what I feel, especially talking to folks like you. My community covers most of Dallas County. Again, that's Uptown Dallas, the Park Cities, Preston Hollow, North Dallas, Far North Dallas, Richardson, Garland, Saxe, Wiley, and Rowlett. So you have one more week to early vote. It is 7 to 7 every day, Monday through Friday. Friday concludes early voting, and we're expecting huge voter turnouts this week. And then the election day is November 3rd, and I would truly be honored to be your representative. And I promise I won't let you down. Thank you for this time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Genevieve. You have a good evening and take rest.
Thank you, my friend. God bless.
Thanks.